What happens when one innocent rehearsal turns into a public reckoning? Why did my fiancé stand silent while I insisted it was just a talk, only to see everything I built collapse when the truth surfaced? Can one conversation destroy a wedding before the vows are even spoken? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Lysandra, and I still don't understand how a single conversation could ruin everything I spent years building. It was rehearsal night, music, laughter, the glow of candles on linen, and somehow that 1 hour with my ex became the reason my fiancé doesn't look at me anymore. Everyone said it looked innocent, that I was just catching up with an old friend. I told myself that too, but Nathan saw something else, something I keep pretending isn't there. Since that night, the silence between us has stretched wider than the aisle we were supposed to walk down. I keep replaying it in my head. Rowan smiling, me laughing too loudly, Nathan standing by the door with his hands in his pockets, quiet but watching everything. Now, the wedding planners are calling, the deposits are paid, and I'm still trying to convince everyone, including myself, that nothing happened. But there's this weight in the room every time I speak, like the truth has already been decided without me. Maybe I should have just walked away when I saw Nathan's face that night. Maybe I thought I could talk my way out of anything. Maybe this time, I was wrong. Maybe the worst part is that I didn't even mean for it to look like that. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be calm, elegant, perfectly staged, the kind of evening people post about later, saying how in love the couple looked. I'd spent weeks planning every detail myself, the candles spaced evenly along the white linen table, the live quartet playing faintly near the stage, the photographers capturing behind-the-scenes joy. Everything had to look effortless. Nathan arrived early, of course. He always does. He stood near the entrance greeting vendors, thanking people, while I floated from table to table, making sure everyone knew where to stand during the ceremony practice. It felt like proof that I had everything under control. Until Rowan walked in, he wasn't supposed to. The band's manager had confirmed that only the accompanist needed to check sound levels that night, but there he was, Rowan, my ex, holding his guitar case and wearing that same calm grin that used to undo me. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was just surprise, not nerves. He waved, casual, like we were old friends. I walked over, because it would have been weird not to. He asked how I'd been. I said I'd been busy. He said I looked radiant, like someone living her best chapter. I laughed, too loud, and said, "You're just saying that because you're on the payroll." Nathan noticed us right away. I could feel his eyes even across the room, steady and silent. Rowan leaned closer to adjust his strap, the brush of his sleeve against my arm barely noticeable, but enough for one of the bridesmaids to raise an eyebrow. I told myself it didn't matter. People always make things look worse than they are. The conversation stretched longer than it should have. Rowan asked about the seating chart, the honeymoon, the color scheme. I told him he'd inspired the palette years ago, when we went to that beach in Crete. He laughed, said he couldn't believe I remembered. I said I remember everything that matters. It was just talk, small and nostalgic, but Nathan walked past us once and didn't stop. His expression didn't change, just that quiet, careful focus he gets when he's building something in his head. I tried to wave him over, but he shook his head slightly, like not here. I felt annoyed by that. He could have just joined in, proved how secure he was. Instead, he made it weird by staying distant. So I stayed longer, explaining to Rowan how the ceremony would go, where he'd be positioned. I kept saying things like Nathan and I decided this, or Nathan loves that song, hoping it sounded balanced. When rehearsal started, people joked that I was glowing. Maybe I was, from the attention, from the power of being seen again by someone who used to know me when I was spontaneous and not constantly measured. Rowan played the melody softly, while I walked the aisle for practice, and I caught Nathan's reflection in the glass door, hands in pockets, expression unreadable. Afterward, guests mingled near the buffet, wine glasses in hand. Someone teased that the music felt a little romantic for a rehearsal. Rowan said that was the point. I said it wasn't that kind of romance. Everyone laughed, including me, though Nathan didn't. Later, when people started leaving, he came to me quietly. He asked if I'd enjoyed catching up. I said I was just being polite. He said 1 hour of polite conversation was impressive. I told him not to be sarcastic in front of vendors. He said, I wasn't being sarcastic, I was noting the time. That stung more than if he'd accused me of anything. The way he said noting, like he was logging data, made my chest tighten. I said, You can't time how I talk to people, Nathan. He said, I don't. I just remember things clearly. We drove home in silence. The car smelled faintly of roses from the centerpieces I'd packed. My phone kept lighting up with photos people were tagging me in. Smiling, laughing, clinking glasses. In one, Rowan's face was close to mine, both of us mid-laugh. The caption read, When exes turn into friends again. Modern love goals. I didn't post it, but I didn't delete it either. At home, Nathan carried the leftover wine bottles inside and placed them neatly on the counter. He asked if I was tired. I said no, just wired from all the planning. He nodded and checked something on his phone. I saw the screen light up with a calendar reminder. Downtown 11:45 a.m. I asked what it was. He said, just a meeting. I asked what kind. He said, personal. Then he rinsed his glass and set it upside down on the opposite side of the counter from mine. I tried to make a joke about him acting like an accountant even off duty, but he didn't laugh. He said, You did well tonight. I said, So why does it feel like you're upset? He said, I'm not upset. I'm thinking. About what? I asked. He said, about how people show love differently. Some use touch, some use time, some use performance. I said he was overanalyzing a perfectly normal evening. He nodded slowly and said, Maybe I am. Then he went upstairs, leaving his phone face down on the counter. I stood there scrolling through the tagged photos again. They looked harmless. I even liked one and left a heart emoji comment. It made me feel lighter, like I could prove to myself nothing was wrong. Around midnight, I heard the soft hum of the printer from his study. I peeked in, expecting to see wedding itineraries, but the tray was empty. Just one blank page sat there, still warm. He wasn't in the room. I told myself he'd been printing work stuff and forgot to grab it. When I got to bed, the other side was untouched. I texted him, You coming to sleep? No reply. I checked the hallway. His study door was closed. The faint glow under the door pulsed, then went still. The next morning, he was already gone. His mug was rinsed and placed precisely at the far end of the sink. Mine was still on the counter, half full. There was a faint smell of coffee and toner in the air. I told myself he'd just gone for a site visit early, but when I checked his schedule on the shared calendar, it was blank. Later, Tessa called, asking why Nathan had looked so tense last night. I said he was just tired, that he's not used to social settings where he isn't in charge. She said he looked like someone watching a storm he couldn't stop. I laughed and said she was being dramatic. By afternoon, Rowan texted, Hope you survived rehearsal night. You were glowing, by the way. I hesitated, then replied with a laughing emoji. He sent back a heart. I deleted the thread immediately, but kept thinking about it. That evening, Nathan came home with a quiet calm that unnerved me. He asked if I'd confirmed the florist delivery. I said yes. He said good, then mentioned he'd need to be downtown again tomorrow. I asked why twice in 1 week. He said, just making sure things are in order. When I asked if we were okay, he looked at me with that steady gaze that makes me feel small. He said, We'll be fine. We just have to handle things properly. Properly. That word sat heavy between us. I smiled like it was fine, but my hands felt cold. That night, While brushing my hair, I saw him in the mirror behind me, standing at the doorway. He said, "You like people watching you, don't you?" I said, "I like being seen." He nodded, half smiled, and said, "I see you clearly now." Then he turned off the hall light and walked away. I didn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt loud. The clock ticking, the refrigerator hum, the faint beep of his phone in the next room. At 2 a.m., I opened the photo again, the one from rehearsal where Rowan's hand rested on my shoulder. For the first time, I noticed Nathan in the background, reflected in the mirror behind us, not angry, just watching. I shut the phone and whispered to the dark, "He'll get over it." But the silence didn't agree. By Monday, the video was everywhere. Not viral like a scandal, but enough that people in my circle had seen it. Someone from the event staff had posted a short clip of the rehearsal dinner, and there I was, laughing, leaning toward Rowan while the caption read, "When the music feels personal." It had maybe 200 likes, but that was enough to make it circulate among friends, vendors, even my coworkers. When I walked into the office that morning, the first thing I noticed was how everyone stopped talking for half a second. That soundless pause was sharper than any whisper. My assistant, Carla, gave me that tight smile people wear when they know something but pretend they don't. She said she loved my dress from the rehearsal, that it looked bold. I thanked her and pretended I hadn't noticed her phone screen open to the video. Nathan didn't text all day. Normally he'd send quick updates, things like lunch done or site visit delayed. Nothing this time. At noon, Tessa called. She said she'd seen the clip and thought it was cute, then quickly added, "But maybe take it down before more people get the wrong idea." I told her I hadn't posted it. She said, "Still, it's your face, your ex, and your fiancé standing in the corner looking like a ghost." That line stuck. A ghost. It wasn't untrue. I'd watched it a few times by then, the way Nathan stood in the reflection behind us, hands folded, expression still. I told myself it didn't matter. People misread images all the time. Later that afternoon, my manager, Layla, asked for a quick word. Her tone had that careful HR softness that makes everything sound worse. She said someone had tagged the company page under the post, calling me the event planner who flirts her way to perfection. She laughed like it was harmless but said our brand should avoid mixed messages before wedding season. I told her it was taken out of context. She nodded, said she understood completely, and still asked me to make a statement, clarifying it was a light-hearted moment. I spent the next hour drafting and deleting captions that made me sound confident but not defensive. Finally, I wrote, "Love means laughter, even during rehearsals. Grateful for talented friends who make magic happen." It felt clean, safe, untouchable. That evening, Nathan came home quietly. He set his keys on the counter, same motion as always, precise. I asked how his day was. He said it was productive. I asked what he worked on. He said, "Just blueprints." I told him about the clip, how people were overreacting. He said he'd seen it. I asked what he thought. He said, "It's interesting what people capture when they're not supposed to." I said it was harmless, just part of the celebration. He said, "Celebrations tell the truth about people." That line annoyed me. I told him he was making something small into something ugly. He said, "You're very good at deciding which version of small is acceptable." He went upstairs soon after, leaving his phone on the counter again. I caught a glimpse of the screen lighting up. A message preview. File uploaded successfully. No name attached, just a timestamp. I scrolled through my messages from Rowan. All deleted. My thumb hovered over recently deleted, but I closed it. It didn't matter. The next morning, there was a thin layer of calm between us. He brewed coffee, asked if I wanted some, and placed my mug on the counter. Not near his, but close enough that it felt like an invitation. I said thanks, and mentioned that the comments under the post were fading already. He said, Internet memory is short, paper memory isn't. I blinked. What's that supposed to mean? He shrugged. Just saying people forget posts faster than documents. He left early again, mentioning another downtown appointment. I didn't ask this time. Around lunch, I met Tessa at the cafe near my office. She was dressed too nicely for a casual meetup, her tone cautious. She said she'd spoken to Evelyn, who was concerned about optics. I rolled my eyes. It's rehearsal footage, not an affair. She said, I know, but it looks intimate. Intimate, I laughed, because we're standing close. Because you're touching his arm, she said, and because Nathan's in the background looking like someone documenting evidence. I stirred my coffee too hard. You're all being dramatic. She sighed. Liz, people talk. You're good at turning stories into spotlight moments, but this one doesn't play well. When I got home that night, Nathan was in the study. I heard the faint hum of the shredder. Paper, slow and deliberate. I asked through the door what he was doing. He said, cleaning up. I said, you mean destroying things? He said, no, organizing. I went upstairs and stood by the bedroom window. From there, I could see his car parked perfectly aligned with the curb, front facing the street like it was ready to leave at any time. At midnight, I checked social media again. Someone had left a new comment under the post. He's not the one you should marry. I reported it, deleted it, and blocked the account. When I woke up, Nathan was in the kitchen, calm as always. He asked if I'd slept. I said not really. He handed me a folded piece of paper. Delivery confirmation, he said. I looked at it. Just a receipt for flowers scheduled for the wedding. Normal. But at the bottom was a scribbled note. Keep all forms for records. I said he was getting paranoid. He said, prepared. Work that day felt heavier. Carla whispered something to another assistant when I walked in. The HR email sat in my inbox, politely thanking me for clarifying the narrative. I stared at those words, clarifying the narrative. It sounded like cleaning a mess you didn't make but everyone believed was yours. At lunch, Rowan texted again, you okay? I didn't mean to cause trouble. I typed, it's fine, people are ridiculous. He sent back, still friends? I replied with a single thumbs up emoji. That evening, Nathan asked if we could talk. He sat on the couch, posture straight, tone gentle. You've worked hard for this wedding, he said. I want it to happen right. I said, then stop acting like I'm the problem. He said, I'm not acting. I asked what he meant. He looked at me for a long time before saying, sometimes silence is safer than defense. Then he stood up, picked up his keys, and left. I waited an hour, then checked his location on our shared app. It showed him downtown again, near the courthouse district. I zoomed in until the little blue dot stopped moving. I shut the app quickly, telling myself it was just a work errand. When he came home later, he smelled faintly of toner and rain. I said, you've been out late all week. Are you avoiding me? He said, no, I'm getting clarity. He walked past me into the guest room and closed the door. The sound of the latch echoed down the hallway. In bed, I scrolled through the video again. I realized my own laughter sounded a little too sharp, my smile a bit too wide. I wondered if that's what people saw, a woman enjoying attention that wasn't hers to take. Then I shook the thought away. I was being punished for confidence, that was all. Men hated when women looked like they didn't need permission. Still, I couldn't stop watching the clip. Each replay felt heavier, the frame around Nathan's still figure sharper. He wasn't jealous, he was observing. By dawn, I caught myself refreshing his calendar, searching for any new reminders. There it was again. Downtown 9:45 a.m. repeated 3 days later. I closed the laptop. My reflection on the dark screen looked pale, almost unfamiliar. Somewhere in the other room, I heard the faint click of a drawer locking. Then silence. I told myself the wedding would fix everything once people saw us standing together again, smiling for real. But deep down, I knew something had already shifted. His silence wasn't distance anymore. It was direction. By the weekend, the story had grown legs of its own. What started as a rehearsal clip had turned into a conversation topic for everyone who knew us, or thought they did. My cousin texted to ask if Nathan and I were working through it. Working through what? I wanted to ask, but I didn't. Even pretending confusion felt exhausting now. Every message from someone checking in carried the same subtext. We saw it. We think he's right to be upset. Nathan hadn't raised his voice once since that night. That almost made it worse. He went about his days with this quiet precision, like life was one long checklist. Every evening, a new folder appeared on his desk. Thin, labeled neatly, never left open. I told myself it was work. Still, the habit unsettled me. On Sunday, his mother invited us to brunch at her favorite restaurant. She didn't mention the incident, just said she wanted family time before the big day. I almost declined, but Nathan said we should go. His tone wasn't a request. When we arrived, Evelyn was already seated, her posture perfect, silver bracelets catching the morning light. "Lysandra," she said with a tight smile, "you look refreshed." That pause between words was surgical. I thanked her anyway and reached for the menu, pretending not to notice the second cup of coffee already poured across from her. Nathan's, always ready. She asked about final plans, about the guest list, about the cake tasting. I answered each politely, keeping my voice smooth. Then she said, "I hope rehearsal night didn't add stress." My throat went dry. I tried to sound casual. "Oh, that. Just people overreacting online." She stirred her coffee slowly. Sometimes perception is its own truth. Nathan looked down, tracing the edge of his napkin. I wanted him to interrupt, to defend me. He didn't. I filled the silence with laughter that felt too bright. "You both act like I committed a crime." Evelyn's smile didn't move. "Some crimes are emotional, dear." That line hit like cold water. I reached for my glass and said something about people needing thicker skin in the digital age. Nathan's hand brushed the table then, steady, deliberate. "Mum," he said softly, "let's not turn this into a trial." I thought that was him defending me, but the word trial sat strange. When the waitress came to take our order, Evelyn asked for separate checks. She'd never done that before. After brunch, Nathan drove in silence again. I stared out the window, replaying her tone. "Do you tell her everything?" I asked finally. He said, "We talk sometimes." "About me?" He said, "About family." I laughed bitterly. "You mean about how I embarrassed you?" He didn't answer, just turned the radio on low. Classical music, calm, deliberate, endless. That night, I texted Tessa and asked if she thought Evelyn hated me now. She sent back, "She's protective. Maybe just stay low for a bit." I replied with a shrug emoji and scrolled through more comments under the post. Someone had tagged a meme about red flags before vows. My name wasn't in it, but the timing was obvious. When I got up for water around midnight, I noticed the guest room door cracked open. Nathan was asleep in there again, laptop closed on his chest, a faint reflection of a spreadsheet visible on the screen. Rows and columns, names, dates, dollar signs. I didn't recognize half of them. I closed the door quietly. The next day, I tried to reclaim control. I met with a few vendors, smiling like nothing was wrong. When they mentioned how composed Nathan had been during the fittings, I nodded proudly, as if we were the model couple. That illusion mattered more than the truth now, but illusions need witnesses. That evening, we had a small dinner with some of Nathan's friends. He'd planned it before the wedding chaos, a casual get-together at a family-style restaurant. I almost wanted to cancel, but he insisted we should go. "It'll help," he said. "People move on when they see things look normal." The restaurant was warm and loud, the kind of place where laughter echoes too easily. As soon as we walked in, I felt the weight of eyes, friendly but cautious. One of his friends, Marcus, joked that he hoped there'd be no exes tonight. Everyone laughed except Nathan. I forced a smile. You're safe. My exes are busy being my husband's clients now. The table laughed harder. I felt triumphant for a second, until I realized Nathan wasn't smiling. Halfway through dinner, the conversation turned to the wedding playlist. Someone asked if Rowan was still performing. I said yes, maybe too sharply. He's professional. People need to stop making everything about drama. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Still brave of you having him there. I shrugged. Maturity means trusting your partner, right? That's when Nathan finally spoke. Trust isn't bravery, it's accounting. The table went silent for a heartbeat. Then someone changed the subject, but the air never quite reset. When dessert arrived, Nathan excused himself to make a call. I scrolled my phone to avoid the stares. The restaurant lighting reflected off the screen, catching the photo from rehearsal again. Rowan's hand near my arm, my smile too wide. Someone across the room whispered my name. I looked up and saw a woman holding her phone at an angle that faced me. Recording, maybe. I stood up quickly, pretending to adjust my dress. When Nathan returned, I said we should leave. He looked around, saw the whispering, and nodded. We left before dessert ended. In the car, he asked quietly, "Why does everyone know what you did?" "I didn't do anything," I said, voice breaking. He said, "Then why do you keep defending it?" That silence between us stretched like glass about to shatter. When we got home, I tried to touch his arm. He stepped back gently. "I'm not angry," he said. "I'm recording what's real." I wanted to scream at that, recording, like I was a subject in one of his projects. "You sound insane," I snapped. "Do you even hear yourself?" He said, "Perfectly." Then he turned away, walking toward the study. The printer started again, a single sheet, then another. I stood at the doorway watching him stack papers into a neat pile. "What are you printing?" He said, "Receipts." "For what?" "For everything." I laughed, sharp and ugly. "You're turning this into some courtroom fantasy." He said, "No fantasy, just order." That night, I called my brother, Max. I told him Nathan was losing it, that he was obsessed with tracking me. Max asked what I'd done to make him act that way. The question hit harder than I expected. "Nothing," I said quickly. "He's just intense." Max sighed. "Lys, maybe step back. You don't always have to win." I hung up. Later, I found a small USB drive taped under a folder labeled Utilities. When I asked Nathan about it, he said, "It's backup." "For what?" "In case power goes out." His tone was calm, ordinary, but something in it chilled me. I stayed awake until nearly dawn, staring at the ceiling, counting the faint clicks of his keyboard from the guest room. The rhythm was steady, deliberate, like someone constructing a case. By morning, he'd left again. The kitchen smelled faintly of printer toner. 2 mugs sat on the counter, his spotless mine with a faint lipstick rim. Next to them lay a sticky note in his precise handwriting. Follow-up, 10:15 a.m. I crumpled it and threw it away, but the sound of paper cracking in my hand stayed longer than it should have. When I finally checked my phone, there was a new message request from an unknown number. Just one line. "You should see what he's preparing." I stared at it until the words blurred, then deleted it without replying. But all day, the echo of that line followed me. Every quiet moment felt like the pause before an announcement I wasn't ready to hear. The silence in our house had turned into a shape. It lived between the rooms, filling the space where sound used to be. Every night I'd walk past the study and hear nothing but the faint tick of the wall clock, a steady reminder that Nathan still hadn't said what he was really thinking. He didn't yell, didn't accuse, didn't even sigh, just moved around me like I was a stranger sharing his air. I tried to keep things normal. I cleaned, played music, lit candles like ambience could fix distance. But the small habits started to unravel me. He labeled everything, drawers, folders, even shelves in the garage. Each word was simple: bills, photos, receipts, archive A. It looked like order, but I knew it was separation. On Thursday, I found a sticky note on the fridge. Dinner, 6:30, family. I thought it was some attempt at reconciliation. When I asked what it was for, he said calmly, "My mother and your brother are joining us." No warning, no explanation. Evelyn arrived exactly on time, perfume sharp and elegant. Max came a few minutes later, holding a small bottle of wine and wearing the expression of someone walking into a crime scene. Nathan poured drinks, polite and detached. The conversation started light, the venue, the cake, logistics, but every word felt rehearsed. Halfway through dinner, Evelyn set her fork down and said, "I'd like to discuss the rehearsal situation." My stomach flipped. "What about it?" She looked at Nathan first, then at me. The video made its way to my colleagues. People assume things. I forced a smile. People always assume the worst. It's human nature. Max cleared his throat. "Lys, she's not wrong. It didn't look great." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," I snapped. Nathan's voice was low. "No one's attacking you." "It feels like it," I said, pushing back my chair slightly. "You're all sitting here dissecting something harmless." Evelyn's tone sharpened. "If it were harmless, we wouldn't be discussing it." I turned to Nathan. "Say something." He folded his napkin, precise as ever. "They're right. It didn't look harmless." That quiet betrayal made my chest tighten. I laughed, brittle. "You've been talking about me like I'm not even here." "What do you want, Nathan? A confession? A performance? Should I cry so you can feel like the righteous one?" Evelyn stood. "You're not helping yourself." "Neither are you," I shot back. "You've never liked me." Nathan's chair scraped back. "Enough." His voice wasn't loud but final. The room froze. He gathered the plates, took them to the sink, and rinsed each one methodically. I wanted to scream at him, shake him, anything that would make him show emotion. Instead, I whispered, "Why are you doing this?" He didn't turn around. "Doing what?" "Acting like you're building a case." He paused, water still running. "Maybe I'm building clarity." Evelyn left soon after, saying she had an early morning. Max lingered at the door. "You two need to talk," he said gently. When they were gone, the house felt too big. I followed Nathan into the kitchen. "You can't keep treating me like a defendant," I said. He leaned against the counter. "Then stop acting like one." I stared at him. "You want to punish me because I had a conversation?" He said, "No, I want to understand how the woman I'm marrying doesn't see what she's doing." "I see everything," I said quickly. "I'm the only one who's been honest." He gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. Honest people don't delete messages. My blood ran cold. "You went through my phone?" He said. "I didn't have to." For a moment I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, electric. "You're unbelievable," I hissed. "You're turning into some kind of control freak." "I'm being careful," he said quietly. "Careful doesn't mean controlling." I stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door. The mirror caught my reflection, flushed, angry, small. I hated how defensive I looked. I hated how calm he was downstairs, probably cleaning up the dishes like this was any other Thursday. The next morning he left before sunrise. His mug was gone, the sink spotless. A faint smell of toner lingered again. On the counter, another sticky note, paper drop 210. At work, I tried to ignore it, but the phrase looped in my head all day. Paper drop. It sounded like a transaction. During lunch, I checked his shared calendar on our app. The entry was there, marked red, personal. I told myself it was a client formality. Still, my stomach wouldn't settle. After work, I drove to the park, the one we'd chosen for engagement photos. The wind was cold, sharp. Nathan was there, sitting under the pavilion, notebook open beside him. "You could have told me you were coming here," I said. He didn't look surprised. "You always come when you're restless." I'm not restless, I lied. He gestured for me to sit. I hesitated, then joined him on the bench. The distance between us felt like a border. I don't want to fight anymore, I said. We're getting married in 3 weeks. Can we just stop? He closed the notebook slowly. I'm not fighting. I'm deciding. The words made my chest ache. Deciding what? If what we're building is safe, he said, for both of us. I laughed softly, hoping humor could break through his calm. You make it sound like a legal contract. His eyes met mine. Maybe it should have been. The silence after that line was heavy. A gust of wind pushed through the trees, scattering the papers on his lap. I bent to grab one, but he stopped me with a quiet, "Leave it." The paper fluttered against the pavement, columns of notes, small dates, our initials written beside words I couldn't read. I stood up, shaking. You're seriously documenting me? He said. I'm documenting us. It's the only way I can stay honest. That's insane, I said. You're not a lawyer, Nathan. No, he said evenly, but I know where to find one. That night, I told Tessa everything. She listened, quiet. When I finished, she said, maybe you should pause the wedding. Pause? I repeated. You mean cancel. I mean breathe before he does something you can't undo. I snapped that she was exaggerating, but she didn't argue. She just said, he's too calm, Lys. Calm men don't bluff. When I got home, the guest room door was shut. The faint hum of his printer carried through the wall. I pressed my ear against it. The sound stopped instantly. In the morning, the printer paper was gone. Only a faint whiff of toner and a clean workspace remained. I went to the kitchen and poured coffee. His mug wasn't there. Mine sat alone beside the sink. For the first time, I noticed he'd stopped writing notes. The fridge was bare, the calendar blank. It should have felt like relief, but instead, the quiet scared me. Around noon, I got a call from my mother. She said Evelyn had called her, asking if everything was all right between us. I said it was fine. She said, then why does he sound like a man finishing something? I hung up before she could say more. By evening, Nathan came home carrying a new folder. He set it on the counter and looked at me. We need to talk tomorrow, he said. About what? About handling things properly. That word again, properly. I said, you're not breaking up with me 2 weeks before the wedding. He shook his head. No, I'm setting boundaries. I laughed, bitter. That's what people say before they leave. He didn't argue, he just said, be ready. When he went upstairs, I stared at the folder. It was labeled financial. I reached for it, but it was locked with one of those small silver clips he'd started using. For the rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about that word. Boundaries. It didn't sound like protection. It sounded like warning. I lay awake, listening to the faint shuffle of paper upstairs, each movement deliberate, like punctuation marks to a sentence I hadn't heard yet. Saturday morning came like a false calm, the kind that tricks you into thinking things are normal. The sun was too bright, the house too clean, and Nathan too quiet. He moved through the kitchen with the precision of a man rehearsing every motion, pouring coffee, folding the paper, checking his watch. I asked if he was going to the venue today to finalize the seating chart. He said he'd already taken care of it. That should have been good news, but the way he said it made me feel like he was talking about something final, not festive. I tried to lighten the mood. We're almost there, I said, forcing a smile. After everything, it'll feel good to stand in front of everyone and start fresh. He looked up briefly. Fresh isn't always new. Sometimes it's just clean. I didn't understand what he meant, and maybe he knew that, because he didn't explain. At noon, Tessa called. Her tone was tight, cautious. She said she'd been meaning to talk but didn't know how. Then she told me she couldn't be maid of honor anymore. It's not personal, she said quickly. I just don't want to get caught in the middle. The middle of what? I asked. She sighed. Nathan talked to me. He said you'd prefer if things stayed private, but everyone's whispering. There's talk about paperwork. My stomach clenched. Paperwork? I don't know, Lise. Legal stuff. He said he was handling things properly. You two need to figure this out before it gets worse. I hung up without saying goodbye. When Nathan came home that evening, I asked him what he'd said to her. He didn't seem surprised. I just clarified expectations, he said. Expectations for what? Our wedding or your investigation? He closed the fridge quietly. They're the same thing now. Something inside me snapped. You're trying to humiliate me, I said. You want to look like the calm victim while I lose my mind. Congratulations, it's working. He stayed silent, that infuriating, steady silence. I started pacing, saying things I half believed, that I'd only talk to Rowan for closure, that he was twisting things, that if he had real love, he'd fight for me, not file against me. Finally, he spoke. You keep using words like fight and prove. Marriage isn't a contest, it's a contract, and I'm adjusting the terms. What does that even mean? It means, he said, that I'm done trying to make sense of what you call harmless. I'm just making it official. I wanted to laugh it off, but the room felt smaller. The printer light blinked again from the study. The smell of toner hit the air. Later, I called my brother. Max didn't pick up. I sent a long message saying Nathan was twisting everything, that he was probably planning something to embarrass me in front of everyone. He didn't respond that night. The next day, I met my mother for brunch. She looked nervous, stirring her tea without drinking it. Evelyn called me again, she said. She sounded formal. Formal how? She said there might be changes to the wedding arrangements, financial ones. She mentioned you might need to prepare for adjustments. I froze. She can't do that. It's our wedding. She said Nathan was acting responsibly. That word again, responsibly. It made my skin crawl. When I got home, Nathan was sitting at the dining table, his laptop open to a spreadsheet. You told my mother something, I said. He looked up calmly. I told her the truth, that I'm not comfortable merging assets until things are clear. Clear, I echoed. So now you're protecting your money from me. He said, I'm protecting everything from confusion. I walked over, slammed the laptop shut, and glared at him. You think you're so perfect because you're not yelling. But this is cruelty in disguise. He stood up slowly. No, Lysandra. This is distance. The thing you said you needed when you talked to Rowan. That was closure, I said. You're turning it into punishment. Maybe, he said. Or maybe it's consequence. The air between us went dead still. He stepped closer, his tone calm but final. You can keep spinning your stories, or you can stop before you lose everything that still believes you. I asked, is that a threat? It's a choice, he said, and I'm giving it to you properly. The word hung there, heavy as iron. That night, I tried to sleep but couldn't. I checked his study again. The folders were stacked higher now. Financial, property, correspondence. One had a date written across it. Monday. Deliver 9 a.m. He wasn't pretending anymore. I opened my phone and scrolled through our photos together. Vacations, birthdays, the night he proposed. I told myself that man still existed somewhere under this new, cold surface. Maybe if I reminded him who we were, he'd remember. When he came to bed, I whispered, "Can we just start over?" He looked at me for a long moment. Starting over isn't the same as erasing. I said I didn't care what people thought, that we could leave town, cancel everything, rebuild privately. He said, "I don't need to rebuild, I just need to finalize." I reached for his hand, but he pulled back. "Lys, this isn't rage," he said. "It's readiness." I stared at him, not understanding. "You're not really going to do this." He exhaled softly, almost kindly. "I already am." He stood, slipped on his jacket, and paused at the door. "Whatever happens next, remember, you asked me to be honest. I'm giving you honesty now." I wanted to ask what that meant, but the words stuck. He left without another sound, and I heard the soft click of his car door closing. The house felt enormous and empty. I walked through each room, touching the back of chairs, the counter, the locked drawer in his desk. I tried every key I could find, none of them fit. I almost laughed. He'd outplanned me in my own home. At some point near dawn, exhaustion blurred into fear. The clock glowed 4:12 a.m. I sat on the couch watching the first light crawl over the window pane. My phone buzzed once, a notification from the shared calendar. One new event. Meeting, proper filing. Time, tomorrow 10 a.m. Location, hotel lobby. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. When Nathan came back just after sunrise, he didn't look surprised to find me awake. He walked past quietly, set his keys down and said, "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." I asked where he'd been. He said, "Finishing what you started." Then he disappeared down the hall, the guest room door clicking shut behind him. For the first time since all this began, I realized I couldn't predict what he'd do next. He wasn't angry anymore. He was certain, and certainty, in someone like Nathan, was the final stage before action. The hotel lobby smelled of lilies and fresh polish, too clean for what was about to happen. I'd come in early, dress pressed, hair perfect, pretending the day could still be salvaged. Nathan was already there, calm, speaking quietly with a man in a grey suit. When he saw me, he didn't wave. He just nodded once. The man turned, said my name, and handed me an envelope. People in the lobby stared as I opened it. Inside were papers, official, stamped, real. A petition to postpone the marriage license and separate finances until further notice. My name printed neatly beside words like misrepresentation and public conduct. My throat went dry. I looked up, but Nathan was already walking toward the exit, his mother waiting by the door. The papers trembled in my hands. The crowd watched. I tried to speak, but no sound came.